Before we dive in, make sure to like this video. And hit the subscribe if you haven't already. And if this is your first time here, welcome you. Picked a wild one to start with, let's get into it. Ethan Walker never imagined that an ordinary Thursday afternoon would become something he would carry in his heart for a long time. It was supposed to be simple, just a quiet visit to his grandmother's cozy home in Oregon, helping her prepare for a small local fundraiser. Nothing special. Nothing unforgettable. At least, that's what he thought. The house smelled like lavender and old wood, the kind of scent that made everything feel safe and slow. Sunlight slipped gently through the curtains, laying soft golden patterns across the floor. It was the kind of place where time didn't rush. Where moments stretched and breathed. But the moment Ethan stepped inside, something shifted. Claire Dawson was already there. She stood near the small table by the window, quietly sorting through a box of decorations. Her movements were soft, careful, almost thoughtful, like she was handling more than just paper and ribbons. When she looked up and saw him, she smiled. That same gentle smile. It was the kind of smile that stayed longer than it should. The kind that didn't just appear on her lips but rested in her eyes, warm and calm. Ethan had noticed it before, more times than he liked to admit. There was something about Claire that felt different from everyone else. She wasn't loud, she wasn't hurried. She carried a quiet strength, a calm presence that seemed to slow the world around her. "Ethan," she said softly. Her voice was just as he remembered, low, soothing, almost like a quiet melody. He smiled back. "Claire." For a moment, everything felt simple. Familiar. Safe. They began working together, sorting decorations, folding ribbons, arranging small items into neat piles. Claire laughed lightly at herself when she struggled with a piece of craft paper, calling herself hopeless with a soft shake of her head. Ethan laughed too, and the sound felt easy, natural, like something he hadn't realized he needed. It was peaceful. Until it wasn't. Ethan's grandmother stepped out of the room to answer a phone call, her voice fading into the distance. The house grew quieter, wrapped in a soft stillness. It was just the two of them now, standing in the warm light. And then it happened. A small sound. A slip. Ethan looked up just in time to see Claire's foot catch on the edge of a loose rug. It all happened quickly, but in his mind, it felt slow, too slow. Her body tilted. A soft gasp left her lips. Without thinking, Ethan moved. He reached her just as she lost her balance, his hands catching her before she could fall. Her weight leaned into him, light but sudden, her body unsteady as her knees bent slightly beneath her. "It's okay," he said quickly, his voice a little unsteady despite his effort to sound calm. "I've got you." Claire tried to stand properly, to pull herself back together, but the moment she put weight on her foot, her face tightened in pain. I can't move yet," she whispered. Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. Ethan didn't let go. Instead, he held her a little closer, steadying her without thinking about it. His arm supported her back, the other gently holding her arm. He could feel the warmth of her through the thin fabric of her blouse. He became suddenly, painfully aware of how close they were. Too close. Or maybe, not close enough. Her breath brushed softly against his neck, warm and uneven. He could feel the slight tremble in her body, the way she leaned into him, not just because she had to, but because in that moment, she trusted him to hold her up. Claire's cheeks turned a soft pink, her eyes lowering, avoiding his. But she didn't pull away. "I'm sorry," she murmured. Ethan shook his head immediately. "No. Don't be. You're not a burden. I'm glad I'm here." And he meant it more than he expected. She tried again to stand, determined, but her ankle betrayed her once more. This time, her hand instinctively clutched his shirt, gripping the fabric tightly as she leaned into him again. That small touch sent something quiet but powerful through him. Not loud. Not overwhelming. Just real. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "Lean on me." Take your time. For a moment, she hesitated. Then slowly, she let herself relax in his hold. Her fingers stayed curled in his shirt, her grip firm but gentle. Her eyes lifted to meet his, just for a second, uncertain, searching, but filled with a kind of trust he had never seen in her before. Time seemed to stretch. The room felt different now. Smaller. Warmer. Like the world outside had faded away, leaving only this moment between them. Carefully, Ethan guided her toward the sofa. Step by step. Slowly. Every movement mattered. Every small shift of her weight, every pause to make sure she was okay. He could feel how carefully she leaned on him, how much she was trying not to rely too heavily, even when she clearly needed to. When they finally reached the sofa, he helped her sit down gently. She let out a soft breath, brushing her hair back with slightly shaky hands. Her cheeks were still flushed, her expression a mix of embarrassment and quiet gratitude. I hate this, she admitted softly. Depending on people. Ethan sat beside her, not too close, but not far either. It's okay to need help sometimes, he said gently. It doesn't make you weak. She gave a small, wistful smile. I've just, always been used to handling things on my own. He nodded, understanding more than he said. You don't always have to. She looked at him then, really looked at him. Her eyes softened. You help your grandmother like it's nothing, she said. Like it's just, part of you. Ethan shrugged slightly, a little uncomfortable with the praise. She's family. Claire shook her head gently. It's more than that. Not everyone shows up like that. Silence settled between them again. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of unspoken thoughts, of quiet understanding, of something neither of them fully named. Claire's gaze lingered on him, soft and thoughtful. There was something in her eyes now, something deeper than simple gratitude. Something that made Ethan's chest feel tight in a way he didn't understand. Life is strange, she said quietly. It brings moments like this when you don't expect them. He didn't answer right away. Because he felt it too. That something had changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just quietly, deeply. The sound of footsteps broke the moment as his grandmother returned, carrying a small first aid kit and an ice pack. The room shifted back to normal, filled again with practical concern and gentle fussing. Claire insisted she was fine, offering small reassurances, trying to downplay everything. But Ethan noticed. He noticed the careful way she moved, the slight tension she tried to hide. He noticed the way her hand lingered just a little longer when she held his arm for support. He noticed the quiet, almost shy gratitude in her eyes whenever they met his. And more than anything, he noticed that something remained. Something unspoken. Something warm. Claire sat quietly as Ethan's grandmother gently wrapped her ankle and placed the ice pack over the swelling. She kept insisting she was fine, offering small smiles, but her hands told a different story. They moved slowly, carefully, like she was afraid of making the pain worse. Ethan stayed close. Not too close to make her uncomfortable, but not far enough to leave her alone either. He watched every small movement, every quiet breath she took. Something inside him refused to relax, like his heart had taken on a quiet responsibility it didn't fully understand. Try not to move too much, his grandmother said kindly. You need to rest it. Claire nodded. I will. Thank you. Her voice was soft, but there was a slight tremble in it now. Not just from the pain, but from something deeper. Something she was trying to hide. When his grandmother stood up and walked toward the kitchen again, the room fell into that same quiet space. Ethan glanced at Claire. She was looking down at her hands. For a moment, he didn't speak. He just sat there, feeling the silence between them, heavy, but not uncomfortable. I'm sorry, she said again, almost in a whisper. Ethan frowned gently. Why do you keep saying that? She gave a small, tired smile. Because I made things harder. I slowed everything down. You didn't, he said immediately. She looked up at him, surprised by how quickly he answered. You didn't make anything harder, he continued softly. If anything, you made me stop. Stop? She asked.
He nodded slowly, searching for the right words. Yeah, stop rushing. Stop thinking about everything else. Just be here. Her eyes softened again. No one had said something like that to her in a long time. Claire let out a quiet breath and leaned back slightly into the sofa, still holding the ice pack in place. I don't remember the last time I slowed down, she admitted. Life just keeps moving, and you try to keep up. Ethan watched her carefully. And do you? He asked. She gave a small, almost sad laugh. Sometimes. I pretend I do. That answer stayed in the air between them. It felt honest. Too honest. Ethan shifted slightly, his hands resting together as he leaned forward a little. You don't have to pretend here, he said gently. Claire looked at him again. There was something different in her eyes now. Something more open. More real. You're kind, she said quietly. You don't even realize it. Ethan shook his head a little. I'm just being normal. She smiled softly. If this is normal, then the world needs more of it. He didn't know what to say to that. So he didn't say anything. He just stayed. Claire adjusted slightly, trying to sit more comfortably, but a small wince escaped her before she could hide it. Ethan noticed immediately. Hey, careful, he said softly. I'm okay, she replied quickly. He didn't argue. Instead, he stood up quietly. Wait here, he said. She looked confused. Where are you going? I'll be right back. He walked into the kitchen, leaving her alone for just a moment. Claire watched him go. Her heart felt different. She didn't understand it fully, but she knew one thing. She hadn't felt this kind of quiet care in a long time. Not the kind that asked for nothing. Not the kind that stayed without pressure. When Ethan returned, he carried a small pillow in his hands. He walked over and gently placed it under her ankle, lifting it just enough to make her more comfortable. There, he said softly. That should help. Claire blinked, a little surprised. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Simple words. But they carried weight. She looked at him for a long moment. Thank you, she said, her voice softer now. He nodded, giving a small smile. They sat like that again. Quiet, but not empty. Claire's fingers rested loosely against the edge of the pillow, her body finally beginning to relax. The tension in her shoulders eased, little by little. You're good at taking care of people, she said after a while. Ethan shrugged slightly. I just pay attention. That's rare, she replied. He glanced at her. It shouldn't be. No, she said softly. It shouldn't. Another pause. But this one felt even more comfortable than the last. Claire turned her head slightly, watching the sunlight fade across the wall. You know, she began, her voice thoughtful. Moments like this, they don't look important from the outside. Ethan listened quietly. But sometimes, she continued, they stay with you longer than the big ones. He understood what she meant. Because he already felt it. This moment, this simple afternoon, it was becoming something he wouldn't forget. I think this one will stay, he said quietly. Claire looked at him again. Their eyes met. And for a second, everything else disappeared. No noise. No past. No future. Just this. Her lips curved into a small, gentle smile. I think so too, she whispered. From the kitchen, the soft sound of his grandmother moving around reminded them that the world was still there. But something had changed. Something quiet. Something real. Claire shifted slightly, her hand brushing lightly against Ethan's as she adjusted her position. It was a small touch. Barely there. But neither of them pulled away immediately. Instead, they both paused. Feeling it. Noticing it. Understanding it, without saying anything. Then slowly, naturally, their hands moved apart. But the feeling stayed. Claire looked down for a moment, then back up at him. Her voice was softer now. I'm glad you were here. The afternoon slowly began to fade, and the soft golden light in the room turned warmer, deeper, like the day itself was holding on just a little longer. Claire leaned back against the sofa, her ankle resting carefully on the pillow Ethan had placed there. The pain had not disappeared, but it had softened. Or maybe, it just didn't feel as heavy anymore. Not with him there. Ethan sat beside her, quiet and still, but present in a way that felt steady. He wasn't trying to fill the silence. He wasn't trying to impress her. He was just there. And somehow, that meant everything. His grandmother moved gently in the kitchen, the soft sounds of plates and cupboards creating a peaceful rhythm in the background. It made the house feel alive, but calm. Claire watched the light on the wall, her thoughts drifting somewhere far away. "Do you ever feel like life just passes?" she asked softly. Ethan turned his head slightly toward her. "What do you mean?" She took a slow breath. "Like you're there, but not really there," she said. "Like you're doing everything you're supposed to do, but inside, it feels quiet. Too quiet." Ethan didn't answer right away. Because he understood. "I think. I've felt that before," he said gently. Claire gave a small nod, her eyes still not meeting his. "I got used to it," she continued. "Being strong. Being okay. Even when I wasn't." Her voice trembled slightly at the last words. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. "You don't always have to be strong," he said softly. She smiled a little, but it wasn't a full smile. "People say that," she whispered. "But life doesn't really give you a choice sometimes." Ethan leaned back slightly, thinking. "Maybe not," he said. "But moments like this, they do." Claire finally looked at him. Her eyes searched his face, like she was trying to understand something deeper than his words. "And what is this moment?" she asked quietly. Ethan hesitated, just for a second. Then he answered honestly. "A moment where you don't have to pretend." The words hung between them. Simple, but heavy with meaning. Claire swallowed gently, her fingers tightening slightly around the edge of the pillow. "No pretending," she repeated softly. It sounded unfamiliar, but also comforting. For a long time, she had hidden behind quiet strength, behind calm smiles, behind the idea that she had everything under control. But right now, she didn't feel like hiding. "I get tired sometimes," she admitted. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Ethan didn't move. He just listened. "Tired of holding everything together," she continued. "Tired of acting like I don't need anyone." A tear formed in her eye, but she quickly blinked it away. "I'm sorry," she said again, shaking her head slightly. Ethan turned toward her more fully now. "Stop saying sorry," he said gently. His voice was soft, but firm. "You don't need to apologize for being human." That was it. That was the moment something inside Claire broke open. Just a little. Not loudly. Not completely. But enough. Her eyes filled again, and this time, she didn't fight it as hard. "I don't let people see me like this," she whispered. Ethan's voice softened even more. "I know." She looked at him, surprised. "You do?" He nodded slowly. "Because I don't think you've let yourself see it either." Claire froze for a second. Then her shoulders dropped slightly, like she had been carrying something heavy for too long. And finally, she let herself feel it. A single tear slipped down her cheek. Ethan noticed, but he didn't rush to wipe it away. He didn't try to fix it. He just stayed. And somehow, that felt safer than anything else. Claire let out a shaky breath, her hand moving up to brush her cheek lightly. "I didn't expect today to be like this," she said softly. Ethan gave a small, understanding smile. "Me neither." She laughed quietly through the emotion, shaking her head. "I came here to help with decorations, not to," she paused, searching for the right word. "Feel?" Ethan suggested gently. She nodded. "Yes, feel." Another quiet silence followed. But this one felt different again. Lighter. More open. Like something had been released. Claire shifted slightly, and without thinking too much, her hand moved closer to his on the sofa. Not touching. Just close. Ethan noticed. But he didn't move away. After a moment, her fingers slowly, gently brushed against his. This time, neither of them pulled back. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't overwhelming. It was soft. Careful. Real. Ethan turned his hand slightly, letting his fingers rest lightly against hers. Not holding tightly. Just enough to say, "I'm here." Claire's breath caught slightly. But she didn't move away. Instead, her fingers relaxed against his. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. "I forgot what this feels like," she said quietly. Ethan looked at her. "What?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "To feel safe with someone." His heart tightened again. In a good way. A deep way. "You're safe," he said softly. She believed him. Not because of the words, but because of the way he said them. Because of the way he stayed. Because of the way he didn't ask for anything in return. Claire turned her head slightly, looking at him with soft, open eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Ethan shook his head gently. "You don't have to thank me." "But I want to," she replied. Their hands were still touching lightly. The room had grown quieter now, the light outside dimming as evening slowly approached. Everything felt slower, softer, more real. Claire took a deep breath, her voice steady but gentle. "Today started like any other day," she said. "But somehow, it became something I didn't know I needed." Ethan nodded slightly. "I think the best moments are like that." She smiled. A real smile this time. Warm, soft, honest. And in that quiet living room, as the day slowly turned into evening, they both understood something without saying it out loud. This was not just an accident. Not just a fall. Not just a moment. It was the beginning of something quiet. Something meaningful. Be honest. Do you wish you were there too? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading. And if you haven't already, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss what's next. Thanks for being here.